welcome to Love Capsule, the confessions we dare to share.
Today we're joined by Sabrina, whom you met on Love is Blind France.
Sabrina, we were lucky enough to experience that crazy adventure together. Today we'll be able to look back on it a little.
Today's topic is love in the age of social media. Does it bring people closer together or does it tear them apart?
It's a recent thing.
But first, Sabrina, could you introduce yourself a little and then tell us about your experience, how you lived it?
I'm Sabrina. I'm originally from Zivlin, and I have a background in law. I did a master's in law. Currently, I work in state real estate, in the public sector, but in the real estate division. It's true that I tried Love is Blind because I wanted to find love in a different way. I was used to focusing on physical criteria. This time I thought, why not learn to love someone differently for their human qualities? I went all in.
What did you feel from the inside?
It's not necessarily an easy exercise right away, meeting someone blindly, opening up as well, especially when you're in a film setting. It can be a bit unsettling at first, but over time you end up getting into it and letting yourself go. I tend to be a bit controlling. I know that Valmy was also a bit controlling too. So both of us, we weren't completely open, but actually that's what allowed us to connect. I think it's because we were similar. It helped us understand each other better. And afterwards, we managed to open up about old issues.
You stay in your feelings. How exactly did you experience the reveal and what were your thoughts?
The reveal. I was still looking forward to it with Hat because we had been talking for quite a while. We developed, I wouldn't say it was love right away in the capsules, but there was definitely affection, maybe a hint of budding feelings, but in any case, a lot of affection. It's the moment when you confront imagination with reality and see if it can actually work. I was in a hurry. And then when I saw him, I was like, oh yeah, that's your ass and everything. And then I found him charming. He wasn't necessarily my usual type, but he had a certain beauty too. I told myself, dig deeper, get to know him, and we'll see if over time you can really fall in love or not.
He's a really wonderful person, both physically and on the inside. With family, he's truly exceptional.
Always smiling.
And after that, how did you experience the rest of the adventure? Because it must be pretty unsettling to have cameras on you 24/7 when you're trying to build a relationship.
It's true that I was a bit unsettled, especially during the honeymoon. Honestly, we were just getting to know each other, wondering if this could really turn into something with a future. On the honeymoon, all the conditions are there for feelings to develop. They put us up in an incredible hotel. You know, it's like riads inside a huge hotel. We're treated like royalty, so I have to say it's kind of easy. But honestly, what I was really waiting for was the period of living together, because that's when I thought you'll really be able to face reality, see if your routines match up well, and also see if, when faced with everyday challenges, we can get on the same page together.
So when it was broadcast, how did you handle the comments and opinions from the public?
At first, it was a bit mixed. It's true that there was that little scene with Charles, which I think disappointed some people who expected certain things from me and ended up believing I was a bad person or a player when that's not the case at all. I'm actually a kind person and I had no reason to hurt Charles. I was clumsy in that moment. So at that point, I started to get a bit of hate. Then there was also the episode of my argument with Van Meen, which I might come back to. And again, it was the same thing. It also divided people, even though there were some girls who understood my slightly possessive side and felt that the blame was shared. And honestly, lately, I've been receiving a huge wave of love, a lot of support, actually. Yeah, it feels good. I think people reacted based on the episodes they had in front of them. And since people don't watch the shows all in one go, especially those who are the most dedicated and follow along as they come out, so they stopped at the image they saw at that exact moment. And by seeing my whole journey, they realized that actually I wouldn't be a mean girl, because that word was thrown around a lot. I'm not a bully either. And in the end, she has her little emotional insecurities, but she's fundamentally not a bad person.
And at the end, especially in the last episodes, we come across as really endearing with your parents. I
think
that inevitably the wave of love became even stronger.
Totally.
But even the Charles episode, it was also pretty legitimate for you to ask Charles what happened because we experienced it from the inside. What happened was kind of what the fuck. It was normal and there was nothing malicious about bringing it up again.
No, there wasn't really any meanness at all. It's true, it was just a kind of curiosity. Maybe what people didn't understand is that we all went through it together. We were all caught up in the same process. And in the end, we all felt a bit connected to each other. We all interacted. That's why we talked to Charles. We talked about it in front of everyone because we're a group. We were kind of united. But at the time, I didn't realize that it could hurt Julie or maybe even hurt him. And I admit, as for his looks, I didn't allow myself to criticize.
So, do you truly think that this experience changed the way you now see love a little bit?
Completely. Honestly, it taught me things. First of all, it showed me that I could break out of my usual patterns and fall in love with someone for more than just their looks. That being said, I was lucky. I still ended up with a good-looking guy, but he wasn't my usual type. If I saw him on the street, I probably wouldn't have gone for Van Mee. So that taught me that you can fall in love. Actually, kind of blindly, you can develop a deep connection with someone behind me.
And speaking of this entire experience, do you have any significant regrets at all?
It's true that I think my main regret is that not everything was shown on screen. I know the production team has to make some pretty logical choices. I think there were 4,000 hours of footage. So then they have to fit that into 9 episodes. But I have to admit, there were certain events that would have shown more of my commitment to the relationship, the efforts I was willing to make, and that Van Mee was also ready to make, to agree to. For example, I actually got a tattoo of the word in Braille in the language of the blind, and it was a reference to the show Novice Blind. I wanted to show that this was an experience that would become a part of my story and that it would stay with me for life. No matter how things turned out with Van Mee, it was more about the experience itself, what I was going through then, that was filmed, but it wasn't included in the final cut. That's it, man. It makes me miss out on the work. It makes me miss out on the work. I was holding the knife like this, and he said, okay. That's beautiful. So there you go, I don't even know. I had organized a meal around the theme of his culture because I had a lot of respect for Asian culture. I went to Paris 13, I went to get a Vietnamese dress, a box with Chinese writing on it. I got tricked because I think it was actually Vietnamese. It says double happiness in Chinese, and I thought it was Vietnamese. I bought that for myself and everything. We had a wonderful meal. It was filmed, but it was never edited. Those are little moments that could have shown that our story was beautiful too. It wasn't just moments of conflict, there were also some really beautiful times. Unfortunately, we tend to focus a bit more on the negative.
There were moments when you were able to share your culture with him.
We went to Tangier during the honeymoon. That's when he bought his dress. He had a jalaba that I had him try on. He chose that jalaba. It was a little nod to my own story too, to my Maghreb culture. We talked a lot about our mixed backgrounds, about how that could bring us closer together. These diverse cultures connect us more than they separate us. That didn't really come out, which is a shame. Not
All the tough times we might have had, along with all the beautiful moments. We ended up focusing more on the tense moments, even though you had some truly wonderful times. And outside of that, having seen you both afterwards, the bond you share is incredible. Every time we saw you celebrating wins, the revenue, the publicity, the two of you together, it was wonderful. We get along really well.
Wonderful people who met, who tried a crazy experience, who gave it their all. And so, well, it didn't work out, but you showed emotional intelligence so that everything went really well. More than anyone, we know you now personally. You
can best appreciate our relationship and who we are individually as well. No, but he's a wonderful person.
You are both wonderful people. You have a beautiful story. Unfortunately, you're not married, but that doesn't stop you from keeping a great relationship afterwards.
It's really smart. It's truly beautiful.
Thank you, Sabrina, for sharing.
Thank you all.
So now we can move on to today's topic, love in the digital age.
And
to take a look at all the advantages and especially the disadvantages.
First of all, can you tell us if social media has ever had an impact on your relationships?
Yes, honestly, social media has already had an impact. Because, for example, in my last relationships, the guy was still in contact with his exes. And it's true that I found out about it on social media. And for him, there wasn't necessarily anything wrong with keeping in touch because he didn't see anything too ambiguous about it. I had mentioned it a bit in the short videos and all that. But for him, what I considered to be emotional betrayal wasn't really cheating. As long as there were no physical acts, it wasn't considered cheating. That also forced me to learn how to set boundaries and to tell him exactly what I expect from a relationship. At that point, we had set some boundaries. You're crossing those boundaries now, so this can't go on. Then there's also this phenomenon. I know that I have friends, I've talked a lot with them about this. When they see their boyfriend liking photos of other girls, it can make some women uncomfortable. My point of view on this is that personally, I wouldn't allow myself to like photos of guys when I'm in a relationship. That's just how I feel. Now, if it happens rarely, just from time to time, like the guy finds a girl pretty or a guy attractive and likes the photo, that's one thing. But if it becomes too frequent, that's when I would start to question why? Why do you need that kind of validation? Exactly. And that's the kind of question that social media brings up nowadays.
But then it depends. You have to look at the specific situation. If it's about friendships between men and women, that's fine. If it's people we know and we're sure there's no ambiguity, I'm totally fine with it 100%, no problem. But nudes, that's a whole different story. Would he have liked it if you sent nudes of yourself? I don't think so. No.
That crosses a line. That's betrayal.
Let's add a bit of that in here. Sometimes a couple needs to adjust, especially when guys have been single for a long time. They have a certain freedom. You have to give them some boundaries so they know where they're headed.
Have you ever felt judged or compared just from looking at social media and seeing other women?
Personally, I'm not going to lie. I think social media brings us a lot, especially for us as women. Even you guys too. When you see perfect looks, perfect bodies, you ask yourself, am I as good as that? I think I'm enough. And of course, that can have repercussions on your love life. But yes, I've been a bit of a victim of that too, completely.
Especially since we're comparing ourselves to just 1% of people. That's it. I've already given the example of a friend's daughter who's a teenager. We actually talked about it. I told her the day you go to the beach, walk 100 meters back and forth and really look at where you stand compared to those people. And that's reality. That's not social media. So from that moment on, I'm not saying people are ugly, but I think there's a reality that's completely distorted between social media and
Reality?
she did it, and we talked about it again. She told me yes.
It helps you put things in perspective. Social
Media.
gives us an image of perfect people. Plus, now there's Photoshop. There are so many touch-ups. So you end up thinking, I'm ugly. I'm not to begin with. Plus, we're getting older too. There's also that clock that's ticking.
And do you think we can really be 100% authentic when everything is shared on social media?
In what way exactly?
The profound and meaningful relationships we can truly have with our cherished partner, the deep and enduring love that forever binds us together. Is what we show really 100% authentic? Or is it a bit overacted? It creates an image.
It's interesting because I've also seen couples who seemed perfect on social media and wondered why I'm not experiencing the same thing, why there are ups and downs, etc. But that's still the problem with social media, which sells us idealized, perfect, overly sugar-coated couples, when in reality, those couples break up 6 months later. There's a lack of authenticity on social media today. Very few people actually share 100% of their daily lives. There are some people who do it, and I think that's great. In fact, there's a movement in that direction where people show themselves unfiltered, where people accept their wrinkles, the relationship difficulties they might have, and so on. And that's good because it actually allows us to relate to them in the end.
I even remember, not in love but in business, when I started out 10 years ago, all I saw were personal success stories. I used to see even more of them, but anyway, I still see it a lot because to get there and so on. And I think I started talking about business failures on Instagram about 6 years ago, and people were like, wow, it's not just unicorns, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, etc. But that's real life. It's real life, but just like in love, there are so many moments where everything seems perfect. Like it's flawless, everything is perfect from A to Z. And in the end, you see the guy cheating on his girlfriend again on the same beach, if you ask me. With me,
Right there,
we have a
Talked in a way, authenticity. We're making a strong comeback. We're making a strong comeback in business, in communication, in communication.
And
In your opinion, do social networks bring couples closer together or do they create conflicts between couples?
They bring people closer in the sense that they allow you to stay connected. That's it. I don't know if social networks have had a positive impact on relationships. I have a hard time seeing it. They've had a positive impact on the ways people meet. At least they've allowed things to evolve. When I say social networks, it even goes beyond that. Even dating sites. For all the people who are a bit shy, I think it also allows you to avoid facing someone directly and to flirt in a different way. So why not? But it can also have a bit of a negative effect. It also distances us a lot, I think. So not only does it create arguments in relationships because there's this phenomenon of comparison, jealousy on social media, etc. And on top of that, when it comes to meeting people, I think nowadays we're no longer using very traditional ways of meeting. Guys don't dare approach women anymore. They're afraid. So they take refuge on social media, on dating sites, because it seems easier to them.
Doesn't it genuinely annoy you guys who always go down that particular route, you know? Isn't it missing now? A guy who comes up, introduces himself in the first 5 words, whether he's good looking, whether he makes an impression, I think it loses its charm.
I'm a bit old-fashioned about that. It's true that I like it when a guy dares to approach. Honestly, I've never turned down a man who tried to hit on me. If I'm taken, I'm taken. If I'm not really interested, then I'm not really interested, but always with kindness, politeness, and so on. That way, the guy doesn't leave feeling disappointed or with his ego hurt. The problem is that now men don't dare anymore. And it's a shame, we're losing something. But that's life. Relationships between men and women have evolved. Romantic encounters too. We adapt to the times.
Do you think it makes couples stronger, or does it make them more fragile?
I would say that social media tends to make couples more fragile rather than stronger. I don't really see how it could strengthen a couple, honestly. I have a hard time seeing that. But that's just my point of view. It can be neutral, it might be neutral, or it can tend to make things a bit more fragile.
And what kind of boundaries do you set in your relationship when it comes to social media? So you tell him not to like too many girls' posts. Are there any boundaries at all? Because every time we kind of come off as annoying when we set boundaries. But it's super important to avoid insecurity in your relationship.
Which
What do you ask yourself about social media?
Oh, and there's also the topic of having exes on your social media. Should we keep our exes on social media? Honestly, I have to admit, personally, when things are over with a guy, they're over, so I don't stay in touch with him. I don't keep him on my social media because, after all, you do share a bit of your life on there. You end up revealing a bit of your life too. Now, if the relationship between the guy and his ex is really clear and there's no reason to worry, no ambiguity, I'd tend to say, okay, why not? And if I completely trust my boyfriend, then why not? But if I see that things are starting to get a little shady and all that, then I might just leave.
And when does this conversation happen?
I mean,
That is, when do you put this on the table?
I think right from the start. I think it's better to show your true self from the beginning. Well, maybe not immediately, otherwise the guy might freak out. If you're faced with a guy who needs a ton of freedom while you're a bit more possessive yourself, you know it's not going to work. So it's better to save each other the time right away.
After that, I tried to communicate. I know there was this girl on his Instagram where
I
wasn't a fan. No, but that's true. There were things I wasn't a fan of. There were some weird things. I just wasn't into it. We talked about it 3 days later. She wasn't on his social media anymore, and that was that.
Well, I totally agree with that. Really, it's all about communication. And if you have a partner who is understanding, who listens to your needs and is intelligent, then really there's no reason it shouldn't work out well.
We don't agree. Do you think social media fuels love, insecurity, or jealousy more?
Well, love, yes, I would say yes, because it allows relationships to form. Insecurity, yes, as well, I would say, and jealousy, yes. So now, as for which one is the most prevalent, I would still say it's more of a creator of love. At least I hope so. At least I hope so. You know, there are quite a lot of relationships nowadays that happen thanks to social media. And
For you, does a couple who really loves each other absolutely have to show it on social media?
oh no, absolutely not. I would say if they want to protect themselves, it's better to avoid social media. Afterwards, it depends on their strategy. For example, if someone wants to make a living as an influencer, etc., it's profitable these days to show couples on social media because you're selling love and people love love. We also live for that. So it depends on each person's strategy. But if it's just an ordinary couple, I think it's better to live. Let's live hidden, to really live. Exactly.
When I wasn't being broadcast, I was happy.
Honestly, really, yes. Because otherwise, there are 10,000 updates a day. It's intense.
But honestly, when I got older, I felt like I was in high school.
That's much worse. You see, that can really create a kind of jealousy and possessiveness. Yet you're not a jealous person.
We actually talked about it. Actually, in the capsules, I was worried about having someone who could handle it. And I remember we had a good talk about that, you and me. Well,
I laid it all out right away, you know. For me, it's a harder no. No way.
I know, because you told me. I remember you said that to me. I remember we laughed so much about it. Yeah, well, at least I didn't lie. Ah, you knew.
Right?
It's
It's really funny. It's really funny. In your opinion, what kills love the most these days? Comparison, seeking external validation, or the temptation of EDM?
What kills love the most these days? Ah, that's a tough one too, huh?
all three are pretty touchy subjects.
Touchy from where? It's hard to choose, isn't it? I would say the temptation of DMs, that's what I think, because that can break the trust in a couple and as a result, destroy love. Because someone might tend to send a DM, sometimes just innocently, or just to validate themselves too. It's not nothing. I think there are 40% of people on Tinder who are actually in a relationship. Yeah, those are staggering numbers. And people don't necessarily go as far as cheating on their partners. They just have this need for ego to reassure themselves, so they look for that elsewhere. But in that case, I'd say EDM to answer the question because it's just a bit too broad, yeah.
If, let's say, your boyfriend regularly posts photos of himself and there's no strategy behind it, there's nothing to sell, nothing like that. I know I post photos of myself regularly because I'm maintaining my image, etc. But if this guy has nothing to do with social media, etc., but he very often posts photos of himself, showing himself off, etc., to me, that's a need for validation. Absolutely. That is, this guy is seeking validation from others. Basically, that's what it means. And for you, what does that represent?
Well, I totally agree with you. But then don't I myself sometimes have that same need for validation too? I always try to balance things out by asking myself, if I do it, can I really forbid someone else from doing it? Sometimes I also have that need to reassure myself, to post a few photos of myself. It feels good to get positive feedback without necessarily being unfaithful or having bad intentions. So if he posts photos, but I see once again that there's no reason to worry about our relationship, that everything is going well, I'm not against it. Honestly, I'm not against. He also has the right to get a little love from others, so to speak, without necessarily going behind my back and doing anything reckless. The worst would be to completely lock someone up because sooner or later the line might be crossed and then things could really go wrong.
But I think, once again, it's a matter of communication within the couple. You post photos of yourself, sometimes pretty revealing, three-quarters profile at a stadium, yet I never worry because you give me emotional security. We've talked about so many things. But it's true that if one day you see something messed up, that's when you'll start to wonder.
That's it. You'll start connecting all the dots. You'll say he posts photos, sends messages, nice things. It's clear.
You see, even today, for example, if the girl I'm with doesn't have an online business, has nothing to do with social media, it's just for fun. And I see that she posts pictures of herself very often. I think to myself, but what is she looking for? Yeah, actually, and to be very honest, a few years ago, when I wasn't into all this, on my profile there were 2 private photos of me, and that was it, nothing else. I wasn't looking for that because I told myself, actually, I have a girlfriend, so I don't care. So for me, I have a bit of a hard time with that. If there's no point to it, well, good for him. There you go, exactly, 35,000 followers. That's clear, that's clear. But hey, you have a business, you have a business. She has companies to manage. We're into personal branding, it's not a big deal. And now I've been on TV, we've had an experience. So for us, it's a completely different setup. But I remember back in the day that it used to bug me a little.
I understand, and it's legitimate. So if the person didn't feel that sensation, I wouldn't have any trouble stopping. Honestly, I tell you I do it, but only a little bit. I remember my Instagram even before I started. Actually, I didn't have much. I had 400 followers, plus I had set my account to private. So really, I was doing it, but just within my small community. So you see, it was very limited, very close-knit, exactly. But today you also have to keep up with the times. You can't overdo it either, otherwise it becomes too much. But the real question, once again, is to try to understand why you're doing this, really. And is there a way to slow down the pace?
Yes, exactly. Let's move on to the debate session. I'm going to ask us a question and then we can discuss it. Do you think couples today live to love or to be seen loving each other?
Very good question. I would like to hope it's the first one, to be loved. But unfortunately, with everything we see more and more on social media, the appearances, the need for validation, and so on, there are still a lot of people, as you mentioned earlier, who shape their relationships around this, living a bit for the likes, for the followers, and everything that comes with it. And unfortunately, I think I'm leaning more toward the second part now.
Do you think so? There are some people who like to show off their happiness just for the pleasure of doing it, really. In that case, I think it's still healthy. Then there are others who, as we said, have a strategy. So their goal is to hook up on social media through their relationship. I can also understand them because that's the path they've chosen. And then there's the other group, which I'm not really sure where to place. And they raise more questions for me. I would still say that even today, it's still pretty healthy. Because in the end, the couples we see on social media are just a tiny fraction of all the couples that form in France or around the world. So I would say that overall, it's still healthy. And you, yes, because you don't leave us.
But I want to say that basically people get into relationships to love each other, to preserve something. But if you can get something out of it, but it's always the same, there's also social validation. That is, they want to show others they're in a relationship. I'm in a relationship with an Anna who's super pretty. We're living a great love story. Or Anna saying, I'm with him, things are going well. He takes me on trips and all that. I'm climbing the social ladder with this couple that's kind of perfect. I think that's very American too. Americans are really into the cult of family, the perfect family. You see lots of people like that in documentaries, etc., where they're with their two kids. They go out sledding every Sunday. They really want to show off that image.
It's kind of a facade. Yeah.
In your opinion, do social networks reveal the cracks in couples or do they actually create them?
They definitely create them. I think they create them. Absolutely. I totally agree. It creates problems. But it creates
Problems. Everything
was so much simpler.
you couldn't check where your boyfriend was at a party.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't.
Wait, hold on. Someone tagged him. I'm going to tag the location.
It feeds into kind of paranoid behavior. Actually, there are
Advantages and also some really big issues to consider. Because back in the day, our parents would get together with a girl from their own village or someone they met in middle school. It was way more limited. But now you can date a girl who lives in New York. There are advantages. We can meet people we never would have crossed paths with in our lives.
it brings people closer.
But on the other hand,
Yeah.
it's absolutely true that the rest, it can also significantly reinforce existing insecurities. It can indeed bring up old, painful traumas.
They
A like, a comment, a story, whatever. It can make everything go off the rails. The whole balance is very fragile.
I agree. There are good sides and not so good sides. Is
Modern love even truly possible without social media?
absolutely. We can adapt. There won't be social media anymore. Men would have to go out and meet women, and we'd go back to more traditional roles in dating. That's what we've lost, and it's a shame.
It's
Clear. How many times do I go to the gym? When I was single, I'm like, damn, that guy's not bad. I don't look at myself. If he doesn't like me, oh well. And then he sends me a message about the reasons. I think it's a shame. He could have come to talk to me. It loses its charm. But if I really like the guy, why not? We'll see if we can take it further if I'm single. But it's a shame.
It's not a question of our generation. That is to say, I wasn't a little package for the older generation, but I'm much more into direct physical contact, a very personal and hands-on approach. However, that's simply not how most 20-year-olds typically operate in this modern era. They
Grew up with that.
For them, isn't it mainly about texting these days? It's
They were born in the age of social media. It's becoming the norm. The generation from the 90s were kind of caught between the two. That's why there are so many people in their 30s who are still single today. It's because for us, the internet radically changed our way of life. We had to adapt to that. Whereas Generation Z, they were born with it. So they get married much earlier than we do. There are plenty of them who at 25 or 26 get into relationships more easily. Around me, I see 30-somethings who are single.
we had to do the swipe life.
No, but it's true. They're not supposed to.
Does it lose its charm? The guy who's pretty good looking at the gym, a bit muscular, you think it's the flings that come along and he sends you a little smiley or an emoji on social media?
I wouldn't say it loses its charm because honestly, I already appreciate the initiative. At least he had the courage to come up. It's not always easy. But it would have been even better in person. But maybe I would have been shy myself. I think that would have been the case.
But don't pay attention to what we're saying. Don't put me in that category. Me?
I think I would have been a little intimidated. Sometimes it throws me off a little. You're doing your session or whatever, doing your thing somewhere. You can feel a bit intimidated. But overall, it's still a very positive feeling. It's to cry in front of someone.
Are you more of a team low-key love or a public couple kind of person, in your opinion?
Team low-key love.
Public couple.
You two guys.
For me, you're the first man I'll show off on social media. I've never posted a single photo with a man on my social media.
Up until now, never. But hey, it also depends on how things evolve. If, for example, people ask to see my boyfriend or want to know more about my private life, if I have a community, maybe I won't hide it from them. Now that I'm a bit more visible, things could change. But basically, I'm team low-key love.
It's true that it changes a lot. There are people who are extremely publicized. When you put yourself out there, unfortunately, you open yourself up to criticism, to all those super negative people, to jealousy, and so on. And it can also get very complicated. Let's
move on to the punchline segment. We're going to ask you some questions and we want pretty short answers.
That's hard for me because
You're
not made for it. It's really
very good. How do you protect your relationship from the toxic effects of social media?
By setting boundaries. I think so. By communicating well, like you said, communication and boundaries.
on the contrary, can it actually strengthen a connection thanks to digital technology? I don't know.
It's hard. What can strengthen a connection when the couple is already established?
For me, I think about showing myself with you. I tell myself, at least I'm showing that I'm with you.
That's true. You lock it down. But I admit it's hard. Honestly, I really don't see the advantage.
Well, it's not going to work.
Not really, anyway.
If you had to give advice to someone living out their love under the gaze of Instagram,
What
would it be?
I'd say you have to really want it. If you chose it, you also have to accept the consequences that come with it. But then, if the couple is doing well and there's trust, it should work out.
That sentence. Love in the age of social media is
It's an evolution.
All right, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. As for us, we'll see you next week for a new episode. Feel free to leave us a comment with your thoughts on this podcast and don't hesitate to follow us on social media.
see you soon. Bye-bye.
See you, Doctor.